What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving into a case that's not just a story, it's a local legend. A cold case that still haunts the sleepy town of Oxford. A tale of a 19-year-old boy, a desperate 911 call, and a mystery that ends. Or perhaps asterisk doesn't tit asterisk end, deep in the woods. So get comfortable, turn down the lights, and let me tell you the story of Kyle Turner. The darkness over the rural town of Oxford was absolute, like black ink seeping through water, leaving only the faint, sickly glow of a moon hiding behind tattered clouds. In a modest third-floor apartment, 19-year-old Kyle Turner sat bathed in the blue light of his computer screen, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he finished a college report on Renaissance art. The clock read 11:35 p.m. He decided it was time to make the drive back to his home in the old part of town, where his mother was undoubtedly waiting up, worried as always. He pulled on his black leather jacket and glanced at his phone. The battery icon showed a grim 15%. "It'll last till I get home," he muttered to himself, heading out to the parking lot where his old faded red Chevy Malibu waited. The lot was dark and deserted, its overhead lights dead for days, the town council never seeming to get around to fixing them. A low wind whistled through the gaps between buildings, carrying a dry leaf that spun in a frantic dance before settling on the damp concrete. When Kyle turned the key in the ignition, he heard a strange noise, a sharp, metallic scrape coming from the trunk. He paused, listening intently, but the sound didn't repeat. Shaking his head, blaming his own exhaustion, he pulled out of the lot and onto the main road. He didn't notice the inky black shadow that detached itself from behind a parked van and seemed to watch him go. The shortcut through the woods, known locally as Old Pine Road, was the quickest way home. It was also a dark, winding ribbon of dirt, notorious for the grim stories that clung to it. Stories of young people vanishing without a trace over the past 50 years. Kyle usually avoided it, but tonight, running late and eager to get home, he made a decision he would come to regret. He turned onto the narrow, unpaved track. Ancient pine trees formed a suffocating canopy, blotting out the meager moonlight, turning the road into a tunnel of pure black. There were no streetlights out here. The only illumination was his own weak headlights, fighting a losing battle against the oppressive dark. It was then he noticed it, a large black sedan, following him from a distance. At first, he paid it no mind, but he soon realized it matched his speed exactly, accelerating when he did, slowing when he did. He tried to make out the license plate, but the darkness rendered it impossible. He tried to shrug it off, just a coincidence, and turned up the radio, attempting to drown his rising unease with music. But the situation escalated from unnerving to terrifying when the black sedan suddenly closed the gap, its high beams flooding his car's interior, blinding him in the rearview mirror. A genuine cold fear gripped Kyle's heart. He pressed the accelerator, but the aging Malibu groaned in protest, unable to give him more speed. And then, in the deepest, darkest heart of the woods, a loud asterisk, bang asterisk, echoed from the rear of the car, followed by a violent, shuddering wobble. A flat tire. He had to pull over, but the thought of stopping in this isolated stretch, with that mysterious car right behind him, was paralyzing. He guided the shuddering car to the shoulder and glanced in the mirror. The black sedan had stopped about 100 yards back. No one got out. Its headlights remained on, high beams glaring, making the car feel like a predatory creature, watching him, waiting. Kyle fumbled with the tools to change the tire, his hands shaking so badly he could barely grip the lug nuts. Then he heard it, the distinct asterisk thunk asterisk of a car door opening from the sedan. He didn't wait to see who or what emerged. He scrambled back into his car, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Decision made, he decided to drive on the flat. The car lurched and bucked, the rim grinding against the road with a horrific screech, but it was moving. He checked the mirror. The black sedan was moving too, slowly at first, then accelerating with a terrifying purpose. He was being hunted. Fumbling, his breath coming in ragged gasps, he grabbed his phone and dialed 911. His hand trembled violently as he held the device to his ear, his eyes darting between the dark road ahead and the relentless lights in his rearview mirror. "Someone is chasing me! Please help!" he gasped, his voice cracking with pure, undiluted fear. "Where are you right now, sir?" the dispatcher asked, her voice calm and professional. "On Old Pine Road, near the woods. It's a big black car. The line didn't just go silent. It didn't crackle or break up. It died completely. It wasn't a network issue. It was as if the signal itself had been surgically removed from the area. His phone still had battery, but it was now a useless brick. Back at the precinct, the dispatcher tried to redial several times. Nothing. A patrol car was immediately dispatched to Old Pine Road. But Kyle was now utterly alone in his terror. The phone had died in the darkest section of the road, where the pines were so thick and tangled they formed a wall, blocking even the moon. The black sedan surged forward, and on a sharp bend, it rammed into the back of his Malibu. The impact was brutal. Kyle lost control, the car swerving violently before slamming head-on into a massive pine tree at the forest's edge. Force of the crash sent his head smashing into the steering wheel. Stars exploded in his vision. Dazed, he knew one thing for certain. He had to get out of the car. He shoved the door open with a groan and stumbled out into this cold night air. He turned to look. The black sedan had stopped mere yards away, and a figure was getting out. It was tall, impossibly so, and moved with an unnatural, jerky gait, its legs seeming to barely touch the ground. Kyle didn't wait for a better look. He turned and plunged headlong into the dense, pitch-black forest. It was his only chance. He ran, branches whipping at his face and hands, roots grabbing at his ankles. But he didn't stop. He could hear footsteps behind him, but they weren't right. They were too light, too fast, accompanied by a strange, low whistling sound. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs gave way, collapsing behind a large, gnarled tree. He tried to quiet his breathing, to listen. A profound, unnatural silence had fallen over the woods. No crickets, no owls, nothing. Then he heard it, the soft crunch of leaves nearby. It stopped. Whatever was hunting him was now only a few feet away. Kyle pressed himself against the rough bark, trying to make himself small. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. And then he heard the whisper. It wasn't in English or any language he knew. It was a low, guttural sound, full of menace and promise. A chilling cold seeped into his bones, despite the mild night air. Then, snap! A twig broke to his left. He spun his head and saw it. The tall silhouette was standing just a few meters away, and in a fleeting break in the clouds, a sliver of moonlight pierced the canopy and illuminated the figure for a single horrifying second. It wasn't a human face. It was a smooth, white, featureless mask. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a blank, curved surface. Its body was elongated and thin to a grotesque degree, with limbs that were too long, ending as sharp, claw-like fingers. Kyle screamed, a raw, primal sound of utter terror, and bolted again. But now panic had fully consumed him. He was running blind, directionless, driven only by the instinct to get away from that thing. He could hear the rapid, light footsteps closing in, that eerie whistling growing louder, more urgent. And then he felt it, a cold, powerful hand, or something like a hand, clamped onto his shoulder from behind. He tried to struggle, to break free, but its strength was immense. He felt the whisper right by his ear, a foul breath on his neck. Then a sharp, excruciating pain erupted in his neck, and his world went black. Back with the police, the patrol car arrived at Old Pine Road. They found Kyle's red Malibu, a wreck of twisted metal and shattered glass, wrapped around a tree at the forest's edge. The front end was partially charred, as if it had caught fire but somehow burned itself out. There was no sign of Kyle inside the car or nearby. The driver's side door was wide open, and on the soft, damp earth, a trail of footprints. Kyle's footprints led away from the car and into the impenetrable darkness of the woods. The officers followed the trail with flashlights. Kyle's prints were clear in the mud, showing where he had run, where he had stumbled. And then they saw something that made their blood run cold. Alongside Kyle's footprints were another set, but these weren't human. They were long, slender, with 5 sharp, distinct points at the end, like the tracks of a gigantic bird or something else. The stride between them was impossibly long, suggesting a creature that moved with breathtaking speed. The dual set of tracks continued for about 200 yards into the forest, and then they just stopped. The last of Kyle's prints showed him standing still, as if he had frozen in place or come face to face with his pursuer. The strange clawed footprints were right beside them, and then nothing. No tracks leading away. No evidence of a struggle, no drag marks. It was as if both Kyle and the creature had simply been plucked from the face of the earth. The police launched a massive, week-long search. They brought in K-9 units, helicopters with thermal imaging, and dozens of volunteers. They found nothing. Not a shred of clothing, not a drop of blood. Kyle Turner had vanished. But the story doesn't end there. This is where the legend truly begins, because days after the official search was called off, the locals started reporting things. On the darkest nights, especially when the moon is new and the sky is black, you can sometimes hear it, a faint, distant scream echoing from the depths of old pine forest. The scream of a young man crying for help. It's always cut short, followed by an unnatural, guttural whisper, and then a silence so deep it feels like the woods themselves are holding their breath. One hunter, a grizzled man not given to flights of fancy, swore he saw a fleeting vision in the woods one night, a tall, thin shadow moving between the trees, and just ahead of it, a blurry figure of a blond young man, running in sheer terror. When the hunter blinked, it was gone. The last known image of Kyle Turner was captured on a grainy home security camera at the edge of Old Pine Road. The footage shows his red Malibu speeding past, and if you pause it at just the right frame, you can see Kyle's face, looking back through the rear window. His eyes are wide, white circles of pure fear, his mouth a perfect O of a scream you can almost hear. And behind his car, swallowed by the darkness but unmistakable, are the twin pinpricks of the black sedan's headlights closing in. The police never found the black sedan. They never found Kyle Turner, alive or dead. But the people of Oxford, they know the truth. They know that something ancient and malevolent lives in the old pine forest, and they know that on certain nights, it still hunts. So if you ever find yourself near Oxford, and you're thinking of taking a shortcut down a dark, lonely road, don't. Just don't. Because you might just hear it too. The echo of a 19-year-old's final desperate scream, followed by a whisper that was never meant for human ears. And that, guys, is the story of Kyle Turner. Let me know what you think happened in the comments below. And as always, if you have a story you'd like me to cover, send it in. Until next time, stay safe.